Welcome back. This is a story called Kim. This is a story about a woman. Her name was Kim Callahan. I met Kim on Orange Blossom Trail. Orange Blossom Trail is where the hookers go in Orlando. They walk up and down Orange Blossom Trail, getting picked up by guys, having sex in the car, and then going to a crack house, taking the money that they got from the guy, buying 2 rocks of crack, $20 that we get for having sex with you in your car, get their crack, smoke it, come back on the street, do another trick, go back to the crack house. This was the life of these women on the street, including Kim. Before I met Kim, I was living with my first wife, Diane. We subscribed to the Orlando Sentinel, which was the newspaper in Orlando. One day, there was an article in the Sentinel specifically about prostitution on Orange Blossom Trail. It talked about where the women went, like between Grand and Holden. Those are 2 streets, Grand and Holden. And then Orange Blossom Trail is like 2 miles. That's where you go. That's where these women, hang out, between Grand and Holden. They said if you go north of Grand, that's where the male prostitutes are, where the boys are who are trying to get men, gay men. So the South Trail is what I was interested in. The article explained that sometimes the Orlando police will take a female police officer, and dress her up like a hooker, a streetwalker, put her on Orange Blossom Trail. And she would stand there. She would stand there in front of some empty building. And as cars pulled up, the undercover officer would have a conversation with the guy in the car. They would confirm money. They would confirm sex. She would tell them, go around behind the building and I'll meet you there. So as soon as the guy pulls around the building, 10 cop cars converge and he gets arrested. The article said the way to avoid being arrested is, well, they didn't say how to avoid. What they said was these officers, the female officers, will not get into a car. They will not get into a car. Because if they did, then anything could happen, right? The guy could pull a gun, the guy could hit his gas, suddenly you're on a high-speed chase. They will not get into a car. And they will only arrest you if you have a conversation where money and sex is discussed, okay? So those are 2 things that I learned from reading this article. Number 1 is don't have any conversations about money or sex with a girl out on the trail. They call it the trail. And 2, if you want to be safe, ask the girl to get in your car because the police officers will never get in the car. So I used the knowledge, I used this information. Oh, the other thing they said was you can also get arrested not only through a decoy, but if the police happen to spot you in your car having sex with a prostitute, you will get arrested. So the advice was get a room. There's a lot of cheap motels on Orange Blossom Trail. Get a room and then you'll be safe. You won't get arrested. So I took this article as a guide on how to pick up women on the trail. So I did. I went down to the trail. I went down to Orange Blossom Trail and I had picked up women and did exactly what I said, got them in the car. One night I was on the trail. Actually, I wasn't the trail. I was on a street. There was one street to the east of the trail, kind of a side street. I was going down the street. I spotted this girl. It turned out to be Kim. I see her right away. I pull up to her. I roll down the window. This is the old days. I had a little crank, and I said, "Hey, do you want a ride?" That's what I said to her. Do you want a ride? Because again, I didn't want to have any conversations about sex or money, and I wanted her in the car. So she got in the car, and she said to me, "Were you really offering me a ride?" And I explained to her, well, no, I was really, I explained to her what I was doing and why she was in the car. And then I asked her, I said, "Do you have a room? Have you rented a room?" And she said, "Yes." So she took me to this motel on Orange Blossom Trail. It's still there today. Oh, it's closed. And we parked in the parking lot, and she had this room that was on the corner. There was like a row of rooms, and then a row of rooms over here, and her room was on the corner. And I got out, and we went into the room, there were like 5 guys in the room, or guys and girls, like a whole bunch of people in the room. And she said, "Get out, everybody get out, everybody get out." One of the guys in the room was this guy who she called Diver. Diver. This was her boyfriend on the trail. They called him Diver because he was an underwater welder, and he worked at Universal welding the rides, like the water rides. So he'd be under the water welding these rides in Universal, although he was actually a crack addict living with his woman, Kim. At that time, crack was everywhere. It was all crack. This was before heroin. So all these girls were crack whores. And they referred to crack as rock. They called it rock. So I'm in this room with Kim. She tells everybody to get out. So we start fooling around, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have sex. I was getting all into it. And we're about to have sex, and she says, wait, stop. We need to go buy wine. I'm like, what? I mean, we were like, right before we were about to have sex, she goes, we need to go buy wine. So I get up, I get dressed, take her in my car, we go to a liquor store, a gas station. She buys Mad Dog, which is like 100% proof. It's some kind of an alcohol that people, who drink, people on the street. She got this bottle of booze, came back to the hotel. At this time, all of her friends were back in the hotel. All of her hooker friends and Diver were back in the hotel. And she took this bottle, and she went like this. She turned it upside down, and she drank the whole thing, the entire bottle in one time. And I'm like, oh my God. Not only is this woman a crack addict, she's also an alcoholic. And we bought crack, although I was the only one that had money, because I was the only one that was working. And we smoked it. This is the first time I ever smoked crack. And at one point, I was wearing my suit from work. I had my shirt and my pants. At some point, I had taken my pants off and was wearing a pair of jeans that belonged to her, belonged to Kim. I don't know why, but she gave me her jeans. I had a shirt with a collar, and she wanted to borrow it. So she was wearing my shirt. And at one point, she took her hand and she ripped the collar off my shirt. She ripped it off like that. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll never wear that shirt again. I don't know why she did that, but that's what she did. And I ended up staying there until like 5 o'clock in the morning. Never had sex, never did anything with her. And I finally went home, 5 in the morning, having been up all night, smoking crack. After that, after those days, I became obsessed with her. And I started looking for her. After work, I only worked like 4 blocks from the trail. So at 5 o'clock after work, I'd go to the trail, drive up and down, looking for Kim. I'd go there at lunch, same thing, looking for Kim, never saw her again. One time, I went back to the same motel where we met our first night. And I pulled up, and, oh, by the way, in the hotel, in the room where we were in, there was a vanity. This is the room that she kicked everybody out. And on the vanity was a can of sun-kissed soda, an open can, and there was a cockroach sitting on top of the can, on the metal part. And I'm like, that's really gross. And also, there was a mirror on the vanity, and she'd written in lipstick her name, Kim, K-I-M. Beautiful handwriting. Kim left her mark there. So time went on. I was going to the trail looking for Kim. I went to the motel, the same motel we were at. I got out of the car, and I could hear voices coming from the room, the same room that she was in. For some reason, I don't know why, there was a girl, a woman, a streetwalker in that room with some guys. It was like 5 o'clock in the evening. She came out of the room, and she saw me. I was standing there on the sidewalk. And she said, do you want a date? That's what she said to me. Do you want a date? Meaning, do I want to, go back in the room and have sex with her? And I said no. I said no, which I regret. I've always regretted that. I always think, I should have said yes. I should have just gone to the room and had sex with her. But I said no. I said no because I'm looking for Kim. I asked her, I said, do you know where Kim is? I figured every girl on the trail knows who Kim is because Kim was that kind of a character. She was definitely the charismatic leader amongst these girls, these prostitutes. And she didn't know where Kim was, and she asked me if I wanted a date. She was real cute, but I said no. I said, no, I'm looking for Kim. And she goes, I understand. She said, I understand. Eventually, I did meet her. I saw her a couple more times. Never had sex with her. She was one of these hookers that never had sex. I had sex with her one time, lasted about a minute. And she eventually got arrested. I'm not sure how I found out, but I knew she got arrested. And I went to the jail, and I visited her at a visitation. And it was completely chaotic, and there were women screaming and everything. And a friend of mine said, Doug, by the way, she got 30 days in jail. And my friend said, go to the jail and get a copy of her arrest record. That was his first suggestion. So I got a copy of the arrest record, and it was written by the officer, the police officer who arrested her. He was an undercover cop. He was cruising the trail. It happened to be Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1996. And he spotted Kim, and he wrote in his report that he saw Kim Callahan on the sidewalk, and she was waving to the cars. She was waving to the cars. And I'm like, that's Kim, that's Kim, waving to the cars. They got in the car. According to his report, she insisted that he buy her a rose because it was Valentine's Day. So this poor guy, this cop, had to go to some gas station and buy this girl a rose before he could get to the point where he could arrest her, and then eventually he arrested her. So now she's in jail. And that's how I knew her last name, Callahan. So my friend said to me, which was very, very bad advice, he said, why don't you enter a notice of appearance as if you are her attorney, and then you can meet her in the attorney-client room so you can have a face-to-face meeting with her privately. And I did, which was totally improper. I mean, I could have gotten in big trouble for doing that. I was not her attorney. She already had an attorney. She had already been to court. She got 30 days. So she didn't need another attorney, but I did it anyway. I entered a notice of appearance. If my boss had ever found out that I did that, I would have gotten fired. So I did that. I entered a notice of appearance. And the next time I went to the jail, I showed the notice of appearance to the sheriff, the guy who was there. And I said, look, I got a notice of appearance. I want to meet her in the attorney-client room. And he did. He let me in the room, and we talked. We spent like an hour together talking. The next time I did it, I did the same thing. I went to the jail. I showed the guy the notice of appearance, and he let me talk to her. And as I was leaving, this cop, this sheriff detective or deputy from Orange County said to me, look, you're a young guy. Stop doing what you're doing. Stop this. He knew what I was doing. I'm like, okay. And I stopped it. She eventually got out. She got out of jail. I know this is a long story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. She got out of jail. She shows up at my office. Okay, 'cause she knew where I worked. I worked downtown. And all of a sudden, I see her. I get a call from the receptionist. Oh, you have somebody here to see you. I come out, and it's her. It's Kim. Right in the office. Right in the lobby. And because she just got out of jail. And I gave her a big hug, and then we went outside. We went down the steps. We went out to my car. And as we were walking out, we passed Diver. Remember Diver, her boyfriend? He was there in the lobby of my building, just hanging out in the lobby. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in so much trouble if my boss sees me with this girl. So we go out to the car, and I say to her, she's only been out for like 6 hours. And I said, have you gotten high since you've been out? She said yes. So I knew she was going right back to her same old tricks. And we spent a little time in the car, and then she went on her way, and that was the last time I ever saw her. Thankfully, that was the last time I ever saw her. Never saw her again. Who knows whatever happened to her. But that's the story of Kim. Don't forget to read my book, Broccoli Time by Dante Allen, available now on Amazon Books.